Hi, I'm Nancy Steenson with Steenson College Coaching, and with me, as always, is Jack Wang. And we have a guest today. I'm pleased to introduce GP LeBourdais. He's the head of partnership at Polygence, which is an online research mentorship program, which pairs high school students with PhD researchers to create original research projects. GP, thanks for being with us today. I have questions for you, and we're excited to dig in. Tell me, why would a student in high school want to do research? Why does research matter in applying to college?
Nancy and Jack, I am so happy to join you. I'm calling you from San Francisco, of course, but as a native Mainer, it's always nice to talk to folks back in New England. Research in high school is definitely something that I did not consider. I went to a small high school in Maine, and in terms of my own academic career, I think I survived exclusively on curiosity. I was not a good planner. I did not do a good job of starting my projects ahead of time. I was lucky if I started my papers a week in advance, if not a night in advance. And when I look at the opportunities of high schoolers to really jump into something that they're passionate about, there were those opportunities, but connecting with someone who could be a good guide was just not a possibility for me. And I think that it's really exciting for a high schooler to be able to say, I've taken my AP Bio class or I've taken my AP English class, and I want to really go deep on some aspect of this. I want to find out more about Victorian literature, more than just what's on my curriculum. Or I'm super interested in CRISPR technology, which we talked about briefly in biology class, but the science of editing genes is really fascinating. So I think that jumping into these research projects allows someone who's still in high school to begin to explore a field that could be a potential college major, even a potential career for them, and sort of set themselves on the right path so that when they get to college, they can still engage in all of the wonderful exploration and taking classes that expand their minds, but they might already have a good idea of where they want to go. So that period of finding things out can sometimes be reduced, and people can sort of just jump right into what they're passionate about. Speaking also to the benefits of taking on a research project, especially one with a great teacher or a mentor to sort of guide the way. It goes back to that experience that I was just mentioning that I had, which is just not really planning ahead, just being really reactive, saying, okay, I have another paper due, now it's time for me to sit down and start working on it. But to say, okay, my paper is due on this date, I have to have a final draft done by this date, a rough draft done by this date. I have to have my research done, which is to say I have to know what books I want to read. I have to know what studies I want to cite. I have to know how to properly cite things. All of these things really are the sort of sneaky learning, I think, that happens when you take on a longer form research project that lasts a month or 2 or 3. You need to include that planning, and having that sort of experience in high school, I know would have really helped me begin to be more intentional, to be more organized, to be more resilient. So I think that those are a lot of the benefits that can come with a research project for someone who's still in high school. In addition to the great exploration of new material and subjects that they might get, they also get all of those really great life skills that will serve them well no matter where they end up at college and afterwards.
That's great stuff. Thanks so much for sharing that. I can relate to everything you said in terms of having been a student many years ago myself, and I remember that reactive philosophy. And think we're so many of us feel like we're on a treadmill and just trying to get things done. Tell me, GP, from the university perspective, why is research at the high school level important, and do they care?
Nancy, I think this is another great question. It can feel perhaps a little surprising to hear that a high schooler would be expected to have research experience when they're applying to college. And I suppose I'll preface it by saying no one is expecting someone when they're 18 to have published a groundbreaking original research paper when they apply. But speaking from the perspective of admissions officers, I can say that Many of them, they encounter so many amazingly qualified students, students with impeccable grades and fantastic test scores. And when you think about how many of those students apply to some of the most prestigious schools, it just can be really hard to break through the noise. And there's a great quote from a former admissions director at Cornell that I like, who just describes going through all of these amazing students and saying, what a lot of those sort of perfect on paper students lack is some sign of intellectual curiosity, some sort of spark of original creativity or interest that can sort of say, this is going to be someone that makes a really interesting contribution to our student body, above and beyond just being great at earning good marks, so to speak. And I think that's where it can be up to the students to say, this is something that I am super passionate about. It demonstrates something that is core to my personal unique interests. And maybe it also helps them to craft a story that is memorable and sort of breaks through the noise. At a higher level as well, some counselors and students may note that in certain applications, there are increasingly these supplements that are optional to upload a research portfolio. One of the good examples of this is MIT since 2013 has had something called a creative portfolio upload, where they invite students to basically share some sort of evidence of them tinkering in a long form way. The concept of portfolios is really borrowed from the art world. My PhD is in the history of art and architecture, so I particularly like that this is something that sort of reaches into the art and design and architectural side of things, and that students even in fields like STEM, engineering, economics can look to the really important reflective work that a portfolio can demonstrate. This is something I tried. This is something that didn't work. This is how I overcame that obstacle. This is the final product. That just shows an amazing amount of creativity, problem solving, and resilience that schools are really excited to see. And one of the reasons that they're excited to see that sort of thing is research is really valuable to R1 schools. For those who are unfamiliar with the term, R1 schools are really just the big research universities. So all of the University of California schools, University of Chicago, University of Massachusetts at Amherst, Alabama, Purdue, MIT and Stanford, Ohio State, all of these schools are considered R1 schools because they have large, robust, and deeply funded research programs. And those range from anything within the STEM fields or engineering to the humanities, through to economics and psychology. These are places where we're sort of pushing the cutting edge of human knowledge with new techniques and methods and questions that are being asked. There's a really sort of simple financial reason that schools are interested in promoting and executing great research, and that's they get an extraordinary amount of funding to do so externally. For products or research that produces products, it can be really lucrative for schools to be able to license patents or develop new technologies in industry. So they really are able to support the rest of the students who are in their school through those kinds of research grants and funding. And on a basic level too, for faculty who are leading these research projects, this is a way that they make the schools prestigious. This is why places like Stanford and MIT have such a sort of devoted following and such a high prestige, is that the best faculty go there because they are the best opportunities for the highest funding for them to do research. And then they publish papers which get cited by their peers in the field. And that makes the school even more prestigious because other universities are beginning to cite that research in their own. So it's sort of one of these things where if the ball is rolling, then they really want a new generation of students to come in and keep pushing it forward, to keep asking those new questions. So this is one reason that schools are asking for these research supplements on their applications. And it's frankly why a lot of admissions offices are being asked to pay special attention to those students who, again, don't necessarily need to have original research published under their belts, but who demonstrate an interest in going into sort of research questions and can also demonstrate a facility for it through creative problem solving, through resilience, through these portfolios that sort of sum things up and tell a story. Just to close, perhaps anecdotally, one of the great researchers that we like to talk about is Sir John Gurdon, who won a Nobel Prize for physiology or medicine. And you might know him because he's basically one of the pioneers of stem cell research. So, this is an amazing breakthrough. He's responsible in part for the mRNA technologies that have helped us develop vaccines during COVID times. And he was actually last in his class at Oxford in biology out of 250 people. He was clearly not a great student in the most traditional terms, but because he had that ability to ask really interesting questions, to think of things in a different way, to sort of be able to make these experiments, design these experiments that lead us to new discoveries, that was immensely valuable, not only for his work in his lab, but also for humanity writ large. So it's just a good example of students who may not be A+ students, but who actually can make really amazing contributions to their schools and even to the broader public through engaging in research like this.
Wow, that's amazing, GP. That's a great story, great anecdote. And I listening to you talk about this, I can't think of a better way for a student to really show their passion for a particular subject area if they're willing to put in the work to do this type of thing. That's phenomenal. Thank you so much, GP of Polygence. What a great organization, great service that you provide. And thanks as always to my co-host, Nancy Steenson. Everyone, thanks for watching this week's College Planning Tip of the Week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.